Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Gold, joining you as promised for the latest one of my Q&As. I put out a tweet earlier in the week asking for your questions, your opinions. So many of you got in touch. I've got them all here, just scrolling through hundreds and hundreds of replies and messages and opinions. So I'm going to try and go through as many as I possibly can. As always with one of these things, if I don't answer your question, it's not because I'm ignoring you, it's because lots of you are obviously asking the same question about certain things, about Partey, transfers, just stuff like that. So I'm not ignoring you, it's just because I don't want to replicate the same answer over and over and over again, because let's face it, that's not going to be much fun, is it, for you guys all to sit through. I'm going to get cracking on it because, as I said, there's lots of stuff I want to get through, lots of questions. But just firstly, as always, just a big thank you to everyone for all your support. If you are just stumbling across this channel for the first time, like I said, I'm Charles Watts, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal. I cover Arsenal home and away, up and down the country, and try and bring you all the news I can across my various social media channels and here on YouTube as well. So please do, if this is your first time, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and for all of you regular subscribers and regular watchers, thank you as always for your support. Appreciate it all. Right, now let's get going, shall we? Because I've already wasted too much time with the niceties. Let's get cracking on your questions. I'll probably have to split this into two because, as usual with these things, there's so many of them that otherwise it will just be one massive long video. It probably, again, won't be too much fun for all you guys to sit through, so I'll probably split this over a couple of days. Right, let's get going. Craig Joshua with the first question. It's quite a hot, topical question as well. One that's going to be quite hard to answer in one regard, but let's have a go. It says, "Hi Charles, love your work, follow your videos." Thank you, Craig. How involved do you think Arsenal have been in the project Big Picture drive to restructure the Premier League and EFL? Do you think it would be Arsenal's or even the PL club benefit, or detriment? Keep up the great work. Really interesting one, Craig, for this. In terms of where Arsenal are and how involved they are, look, they have been involved. It's no secret the Big Six have been talking about it, or the so-called Big Six have been talking about it. Obviously, it's been driven by the American owners of Manchester United and Liverpool, but Arsenal kind of staying silent, not really giving too much away about how involved in the process they've been so far. But look, let's face it, as much as we all love Arsenal, the people who run this club in it for one thing, and that is really money. And that's the same with all the Big Six, and I hate it. I hate the whole idea. I just can't stand it. I think it's nothing but like what people have said. It's a power grab. It's the Big Six using their power at the worst possible time as well, in the middle of a pandemic, when people are panicking, when money's short, to try and grasp control of the English game. And I hate the idea. I hate the idea of the Big Six controlling all the power, having the stake, having the casting votes, basically, and being able to just push through what they want, whenever they want, if they get their way, and have basically the vote on all things. It's a way of ensuring they get all their money, get all the revenue in the future, and I just can't stand the idea. I fully support the fact that the EFL clubs need some sort of bailout. They need some money. The redistribution of the money needs to be better. It needs to filter down the leagues better. But I just don't like this idea. It just feels opportunistic from the big clubs at this time, when people are desperate for money, when clubs are desperately fighting to survive, to basically dangle this money there for them. But it's, you know, for the long term, it's only going to benefit them, and I don't think it's going to benefit the English game at all. I don't like the idea, and I hope it's going to get shot down pretty quickly. But I hope it might lead to something better, and lead to more talks, lead to more discussions between the leagues, between the various stakeholders, to get something that is beneficial for everyone, and for the clubs in the lower leagues who are struggling and aren't really seeing the money that the Premier League clubs are seeing. So I hope it might lead to something, but as it stands right now, not liking it at all. Feels absolutely opportunistic, as I said, and nothing but a power grab by the big, powerful clubs and the billionaire owners. Most of them are sitting in America. So no, don't like it. Craig, in answer to your question. Alex Amari talks about Thomas Partey. Says, we are yet to see the display, but I will fancy Partey 6, Xhaka 8 and Ceballos 10, and then Willian, Pepe and Orba up front. What's your take? I'm not sure on that. I'm not sure about Ceballos at 10. I think if he's going to do something like that, I can almost see Willian at 10, have Xhaka and Thomas as the sort of midfield pivot, and then Pepe right, Saka left, Orba up front, or Orba left, Lacazette up front. I prefer that idea, I think, to Ceballos at 10. I'm not sure. I think Ceballos is great deeper. I mean, I'd even almost play. You could have Ceballos and Thomas in the midfield pivot. But I'm just not sure about Ceballos at 10. But I love what Thomas is going to give to Arsenal. He's going to give them so many options in terms of that midfield. You can play 4-3-3, you can play 4-2-3-1, you can still play 3 at the back, but I do think we'll move away from that. And you're just going to see a midfielder suddenly who has a dynamism and has the ability to carry ball with his feet, to drive forward, to transition from defence into attack very, very quickly, to get up and support the attack so they're not so isolated. I think it's a really good addition for Arsenal. I can't wait to see what he's going to bring over the next few months. Raheem on Partey says, how best can Partey adjust from the old Madrid system to our system of 3-4-3 for better results? I don't think we're going to see that 3-4-3 for much longer. I think Partey's arrival is going to change that. I think Arteta hinted at it when he talked about him earlier in the week with those with the quotes he put in the video he did on Arsenal.com, where he spoke about the adaptability that Thomas is going to bring and it's going to allow him to play different formations. And I just think the 3-4-3 has almost been something Arteta has had to do because he hasn't had the midfield options that he wanted, or the players in midfield that would allow him to feel confident enough to play with just 4 at the back. But I think Thomas's addition, what he's going to bring defensively, but also what he's going to bring going forward, which maybe we're not too many people expect because of where he's come from out of Atletico, who are so rigid, so just schooled under Simeone, so disciplined, that Thomas hasn't really been given license to get forward that much. But when you talk to people about Thomas, he's not just a defensive midfielder. He's not just a destructive ball winner. You know, he's very good going forward. He can get into the final third. He's not bad. I mean, if you saw Ghana yesterday, he was 2 assists. The second assist was fantastic for Owusu's goal, and I think we're going to see that more and more at Arsenal. So I'm really excited about him, Raheem, but I'm just not sure the 3-4-3. I'm not sure that's what we're going to see long term now that Thomas has arrived. I think we'll go to a flat back 4 again. You already know says, how best can Arsenal toe into the creativity that Mesut Ozil has to offer with the current setup crop of players? I'm not sure I understand your question. I'm presuming you're saying, how can Arsenal do without Mesut Ozil at the moment with the current crop of players? It's a struggle. They don't have that creative spark that they used to have in Mesut, but I don't think Mesut really had offered that as much as he has done in recent seasons anyway. But I do think, like I just mentioned, I think Thomas's arrival is going to change that pretty dramatically as well. I think he's going to offer an awful lot more going forward than a lot of people expect. And I also think that he could allow Arsenal to go with a 10. You know, they could play Willian there, they could play Saka there, even they could play Ceballos there, like it's been mentioned before, although I'm not too keen on that idea, but they could. And that will allow them to have 4 attackers rather than just really the 3 that we're seeing at the moment with the fullback support and the wing back supporting them. I think once you go to flat back 4, if you play just the midfield pivot of Xhaka and Thomas, or Ceballos and Thomas, then you can have Willian as a 10, and then you can have Pepe, Orba, Saka, and I think you're going to see more creativity, just going to see more players in the attacking third. I think we're getting there with Arteta's jigsaw. Maybe he's missing certainly one more piece in an attacking sense, which would have been a Houssem Aouar if they'd have managed to get him, and we'll probably see that revisited next summer, not specifically with Aouar, although I wouldn't be surprised if they go for him again, but certainly a player of that ilk. But until then, I still think Arsenal's creativity is going to improve as the season goes on, thanks to the addition of Thomas and thanks to the formations and the different systems Arteta is now going to be able to use. MI Rage says, I have read that Arteta feels that Saliba goes to ground too often and doesn't defend set pieces very well. Is there any truth in this? Is he really likely to go on loan to Championship side while Fofana starts games for Leicester? I haven't heard that about Arteta's thoughts on Saliba going to ground too often or defending set pieces. I have to say, I'm not sure where you've read that. It's not something that I've been told by anyone that I've spoken to. In terms of, is he likely to go on loan to a Championship club, it's still up in the air. Arsenal have certainly been in talks with Championship clubs. There's many Championship clubs that want him, but Arsenal are really keen to take their time in this. Obviously, they've got till Friday to decide whether to do that or not, whether to send him out on loan, but they've got to weigh up what's best for him, to keep him here where he's probably not going to play that much, if at all, before Christmas, because he's not in the Europa League squad, and you think it's probably unlikely he's going to suddenly get thrown into the Premier League picture, or to go out on loan to a Championship club where he's not going to be here, where he's going to have to adjust to somewhere else, again struggling with the language, away from Arsenal. You know, what's best for him, what's best for his mental state, what's best for his development on the football side of things. Would it be better just to train with the squad, adjust more and more, feel settled here? So that's what they're weighing up at the moment. I think it's 50-50 really in terms of whether he goes out or not. But I mean, they're going to have to decide soon because, like I said, 5 o'clock on Friday, that is the domestic transfer window that comes to a close. Jordan says, how close was Aouar to joining Arsenal? Not that close, to be honest. They had a bid rejected and that was it. So, you know, not really that close. They obviously wanted him. They tried to get him. They didn't. Leon didn't accept the bid, and that was pretty much it. I don't think personal terms would have been an issue if that had got to that stage, but it didn't. So that's basically how close they were. They wanted him, made a bid, it was rejected, and they didn't go back in with another. So that's how close he was. And in the second question here, Jordan, you ask, is it true his brother persuaded Aouar from coming? I just don't know. I've seen that reported, but I can't tell you that definitively because I just don't know, I'm afraid. Zakir says, do you think selling Martinez was good or Arsenal will regret it in the future? Does coaching structure need to be reworked to see killer instinct in players? I think there's quite a bit of killer instinct in Arsenal players at the moment. I think that's certainly improving. It's something that Arteta is drilling into him. In terms of Martinez, do you think Arsenal regret it? Only time will tell. We'll have to see how his performances are. I wouldn't be surprised because he's a very, very good goalkeeper and he's going to get better and better. But Arsenal had to do something. They had to sell one of the goalkeepers. Martinez didn't want to stick around if he wasn't going to be number one. They already had a very, very good goalkeeper in Leno, which we've seen already this season. So they had to do something. They needed money as well to invest elsewhere, as we saw with Thomas Partey, that money. And they got a very good offer from Aston Villa for a goalkeeper. Let's face it, a few months before was probably worth about £2 million, £3 million. Now they've suddenly got 20 million for him. So in terms of would they regret it, look, it's down to Martinez. I mean, he might go on to become the best goalkeeper in the world, and then sure, Arsenal will probably regret it. But you know, it was a decision that needed to be made, and they got a good deal. And for Martinez, he also got a good deal because he goes out to go and play, which is something that he wanted. So it was a tough one for Arsenal. Whatever decision they came to with the goalkeepers this summer, it was going to be a really, really difficult one. What's next? Bebra says, should Arsenal lose out on Aouar, as I hear other big clubs may be in for him? What other alternative players are there who can fill into the number 10 position? It's too far. It's too far in the future now. Look, we're a year away from that. I've said before in my last video, I don't think Arsenal will go back for Aouar in January just because I think it'll be a very big deal to do. I can't imagine Leon would be willing to let Aouar go in January, depending on how the season's going. So it's not, we've got a whole nother year to wait now. I don't really want to get into what Arsenal are going to do next summer in the transfer market because I'm still knackered from the last transfer window, which is only just shut. So it's tough to look that far ahead. You know, good players can emerge. You know, Emil Smith-Rowe might come back from injury and have a brilliant season. Then suddenly Arsenal aren't looking for a number 10 anyway. And the formation that Arteta might now go for might not have a number 10 in it. I'm not sure Aouar's a number 10 anyway, to be honest. I'm thinking he's probably more of a number 8. So it's just, I'm just not really going to get into that one. I think it's too hard for me. It's too far away in terms of what Arsenal are going to do next summer in the transfer market and who they might well be looking at. Drezen says, is there any chance of getting Jack Wilshere back to Arsenal, maybe even without any contract, just to train with the squad? I think if Arsene Wenger was here, I wouldn't be surprised about that at all, because that's what, let's face it, that's what Arsene's done time and time again with former players. In terms of are Arsenal going to give Jack Wilshere a contract, then no. It's just they're not got their wage bill's big enough as it is. They can't afford to just be basically giving money to passengers to come on and train and get back remotely fit. I'd be very surprised, and Jack wouldn't want to do that anyway. Jack wants to go and play. That's the whole reason he left West Ham, and that he agreed to cancel his contract with West Ham, because he wants to go out and play. You know, he's sat in his backside for the last 8 months under David Moyes and didn't play. He's not injured. He's just not been picked by David Moyes, and so he's not going to come to Arsenal and just sit around just because it's Arsenal. He's going to want to go and play in the last few years of his career when he's still fit. So no, I can't see that Dresden at all, I have to say. Henry asks, is sending Saliba out on loan purely a football situation, or is there more to it? As far as I'm aware, Henry, and I know it's an odd situation with Saliba, because we all expected him to come in and make a really big impact straight away this season, but as far as I'm aware, it is purely a footballing situation. 500 Days of Arsenal says, is there a chance Arsenal sign Oblak from Atletico next summer to cope with Liverpool? I don't think so. You look at Oblak's release clause, how much he would cost. I think Arsenal got a very good goalkeeper in Bernd Leno. They're not going to go and suddenly splash all that money on a goalkeeper. So no, I wouldn't be expecting to see Oblak at Arsenal next summer, as good a goalkeeper as he is. Cronky Out says, possible for Aouar in January. I've already discussed that. Cronky Out, so please do head back and look at one of the early answers in this question in regards to my thoughts on a possible January move for Aouar. And do you think this could be a breakout season for Smith Rowe? I do, and I think it kind of needs to be now, because he's been in and around it for a while now. Smith Rowe needs to stay fit. He's picking up annoying injuries, Smith Rowe, that I know he's very frustrated with, and he needs to stay fit and get some game time. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I said, we've got till Friday 5 PM for the loan market to shut. Arsenal initially was certainly going to be keeping Smith Rowe because Arteta liked him and he wanted to use him this season, in the first half of the season in Europa League and things like that. I do wonder if that might change now, just because he hasn't played at all yet and he's been struggling with injuries and he's struggling for fitness, whether they might think it's better for him to go out and get a few games between now and January and then reassess the situation again. So I think it'll be an interesting one what happens with Smith Rowe. But I think it's important that if he does stay, that he has a good Europa League campaign, because he's a good player, Smith Rowe. He's a player who can provide an awful lot, I think, but he just needs to stay fit. So yeah, it's definitely a make or break season. Well, that's harsh. Not make or break. Sorry, it's probably a breakout season. It needs to be a bit of a breakout season, kind of like what Saka had last season. Baby Llama says, what sort of transfer strategy are Arsenal going to employ should they not qualify for Champions League next season? I know as fans we try not to think about that scenario, but it is a very real possibility. It is, but look, they've done all right in the last couple of seasons without Champions League in terms of their transfer strategies. They've signed Thomas Partey this summer. They signed Nicolas Pepe last summer. They signed Gabriel this summer. So it's not like, it's not like they've had disastrous transfer markets. They've spent an awful lot of money in the last couple of windows, having not been in the Champions League. So I think it'll be pretty similar. I'm not sure it's going to be, any different to what we've seen recently. I think they'll still have a good go. But look, hopefully we're not going to get to that. Hopefully Arsenal are going to qualify for Champions League, and we're not going to have to deal with this scenario again of playing in the Europa League next season. Don Carlo says, hi Charles, thanks so much for the great work you're doing. The club has to do more to integrate our youth players into the first team. I believe that the likes of Patino, Flores, Lopez should have been blooded into the first team. I think it's a bit early for those guys, to be fair. I mean, you talk about Patino, obviously fantastic young talent, Charlie Patino, Flores as well, but Flores has barely even played in the under-23s yet. He's only just turned 18, just signed his professional contract this week or last week. So I think it's a bit early for them to be blooded into the first team. I think this is going to be a good season for them to possibly get some under-23s football. But in terms of blooding them into the first team, yeah, I don't think so. And I just think it's a little bit early. And Arsenal, look, let's face it, they do pretty good when it comes to integrating young players into the first team. We've seen that in recent years, with Saka, Nketiah, Willock, Martinelli. So we've seen plenty of them, but I think they're pretty good for that in that regard. So I think that the players that you've listed, though, they're pretty young. As talented as they are, I think Joel Lopez will be interesting this season. I think we'll see him more and more at left back in the under-23 setup, and it'll be good to watch him, see how he develops. But yeah, for him, Patino and Flores, I think it's just a little bit early yet to really be integrating with the first team. They are beginning to train with Mikel Arteta's squad, though. Jacob asked about the update on the Kieran Tierney situation. As far as I'm aware, Jacob is still up in Scotland. I haven't heard any different, unless Arsenal managed to get him down here pretty secretively. As I've mentioned before, the whole issue with this is obviously he's isolating up there, needs to isolate for 2 weeks, because that is the rules in Scotland when you come into close contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID. And as much as Arsenal are frustrated by it because Tierney's tested negative, and Tierney himself is frustrated about it, the Scottish government don't want to be seen as giving preferential treatment to a celebrity, to a footballer, a high-profile name. And so Arsenal are finding it very, very difficult, though they've been trying to get him back to England early. So as it stands right now, he will be missing the Manchester City game at the weekend. Hold on one sec. Ideas on whether, this is still from Jacob, sorry, before I get on to Mo's question. Ideas on whether Partey will feature against City in alignment with further news on Auba's slight ankle sprain potential lineup. Do I think Partey will feature against City? Yes. Aouar ankle sprain is fine. He's fit. He's been training this week. Potential lineup. It's quite early. I mean, we're speaking to Mikel Arteta on Thursday for his pre-match press conference. We'll get a little bit more on team news. I mean, there's still some international players still not back yet, so it's quite tough to do a predicted lineup. I will, though, Jacob, do my predicted lineup later on the week in one of these videos, so keep an eye out for it then. Mo says, do you think we have a chance of signing Aouar? I think they probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to him. Look, he's a player they've liked. He's not just something they've gone for this summer. He's a player the scouting department have looked at for a long, long time and have identified as a player that Arsenal should sign, or should at least try to sign. They did that this summer. Didn't happen. No, didn't have the bid accepted. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to him. Very similar to Thomas Partey as well. You know, Arsenal been interested for him a long time. They put the feelers out last summer, decided against it, but they went back for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see Arsenal do that with Aouar. The only slight issue with that is the whole Real Madrid situation. Juventus as well. You know, do they go back? Do they go in for him next summer as well after another year at Lyon? So it might not be as easy, might not be as open as it was this summer in terms of the chances of getting him. Ramsey says, with Partey now signed, do you expect Arteta to change formation to a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1? I do. Yes, maybe not straight away, especially with the tough away games coming up and the fact that Partey needs to adapt and be given time to settle into his new surroundings. But I think the long term, certainly over the next month or so, 2 months, we will see Arsenal moving towards the back four that Mikel Arteta has always preferred. Could be 4-3-3, like I mentioned in this, with Ceballos at the tip of it, maybe. Or it could be 4-2-3-1, as again I've mentioned, Willian could be 10, Pepe right. I think it's important that Pepe plays. The whole one of either Willian or Pepe, I'm not too sure on. I think it's important Pepe plays because Arsenal, they don't create as many chances of other teams. So they need all their players on the pitch who can score goals, really, for me. And Pepe's one of them, as we saw against Sheffield United. I think it's important that Pepe plays just because he's a threat and he can score goals. So I kind of like the idea of Willian playing in that number 10 role, as we saw in the second half against Sheffield United, and then you can have either Saka on the left or Aouar on the left and Lacazette up front. So I kind of like the 4-2-3-1, especially at home against the teams that are going to sit deep. Maybe away from home you want to move, you want to stick with a sort of 4-3-3 and make them pack the numbers in midfield. Is there space for a breakthrough young player this season like Saka did? If so, who? Nelson Willock already there, or an under-23 like John Jules or Balogun to get time off the bench, says Colm. Well, it's not going to be John Jules because he's on loan. Doncaster doing very well already for the season. Balogun, I doubt it, just because of his situation with his contract, which is still ongoing. Although he's beginning to train more and more with Arteta's first team and has been training recently, still not sure we're going to see much of Balogun this season. Because of that situation. So I'm not sure really for a breakthrough player from the under-23s. I'm not sure we're going to see someone from like Saka, you know, make that sort of impact this season. We'll probably get some players playing in the Europa League. You know, maybe Smith Rowe. I think if Smith Rowe stays fit, gets himself fit and gets himself in shape, I think he could have a good season this season. It could be his breakthrough year, and he could do that in the Europa League as well. It's a shame he's missed the early rounds of the the Carabao Cup, because I thought he'd be involved in that, and I'm really looking forward to see what Arteta can do with him. Dan says, any news on Socrates? I personally think it's a shame he's been frozen out. A much better centre-back than Mustafi, David Luiz or Mari. I think that's a bit unfair on the others there, Dan, I have to say. Certainly Mari. I mean, let's face it, we haven't seen any of him, so I'm not sure we can definitely say Socrates is a better player than him, because we just haven't seen Mari yet. And I think Mustafi was very, very good last season. Once Arteta came in, I'd have definitely had him in the team ahead of Socrates. And I think he deserved his spot in the team well, once he came in. I thought he didn't barely put a foot wrong, Mustafi, and I think Luiz is really, really important for me as well. So I'm not sure I agree with you, I have to say. In terms of any news on him, I mean, look, he's not in the Europa League squad. It's probably not going to be in the Premier League squad, so it may well be that Socrates has played his last game for Arsenal. He's been a decent professional, been a decent signing, probably not worth the money, considering when you think that what they spent on him and what he's given. But it's certainly been a very good professional at Arsenal. Great for journalists as well, because he's a fantastic talker, always stops to talk to us. Very few of them do, so it's always nice when Socrates comes through, because you know you're going to get someone who talks. So I've got a lot of time for Socrates, but I'm not sure we're going to see him much more in an Arsenal shirt. Smooth football, anything but Aouar talk, been nothing but talk about him for 2 months. I kind of agree with you there, smooth football, but you probably wouldn't have enjoyed some of the first part of this video because there's been a fair bit of talk about Aouar. I'm interested in learning what the real Arteta-Ozil situation is. I just can't tell you, I'm afraid, because I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. No one knows. Arsenal have been very, very tight-lipped on this. Arteta, we ask him all the time. He doesn't give anything away. People at the club don't give much away about it. Ozil obviously hasn't really had his say other than the couple of interviews he's done and his agent have done, but even then they're not saying exactly what's going on. I think, look, the money obviously comes down to it. Arsenal have been desperate to get him out. Desperate, you could say they've been trying to freeze him out. Maybe so. Maybe that's a fair comment. But just because they'd have saved so much money if they'd have managed to get him out the door, and that's what they've been doing this summer. Hasn't happened. They put a lot of work in to try and get him out. It didn't happen. He wasn't going to go. And I think when it all boils down to it, it boils down to money. He's earning an awful lot of money. Arsenal want that money off the wage bill. They don't think, Arteta doesn't think, he offers that much on the pitch anymore. He doesn't. It's a fair comment to say he doesn't train with the same sort of intensity as some of the other players. He doesn't really fit the work ethic that Arteta demands from his players. I think when you add all that together, that's why he's not in the team. I don't think it's specifically one thing. I know a lot of people say it's the pay cut. It's he didn't take a pay cut. That's the reason. I'm not convinced it's just that. I think it's a lot of things married together, and that Arsenal are now trying to move away from Mesut Ozil. As frustrating as that is for a lot of Mesut Ozil fans out there. Primino says, "Hey Charles, I hope you're having a great day. I've been wondering what your take on Partey's addition to the team is. Do you think he'll replace Xhaka, or do you think he'll be part of three in midfield with Xhaka and Ceballos?" It's an interesting one, but I think if he's going to go 4-3-3, I think that's the ideal formation in the three. It's going to be all three of them playing. I think if it's 4-2-3-1, it'll be interesting to see who goes with. Obviously, Xhaka's very, very important to Arteta. He's been his go-to man in the midfield, but I think Ceballos gives you an awful lot. And I kind of like the idea of Partey and Ceballos in that too, especially at home against teams that are going to sit in and sit deep and not really put too much pressure on the Arsenal defence other than on the counter-attack. So I kind of like the idea of Arteta, of Thomas and Ceballos, and then with someone playing in the 10 role. Whether Arteta will do that, I'm not sure, because he really likes Granit Xhaka. It's going to be really interesting to see how that midfield evolves over the next month, 6 weeks, 2 months, and how we see. We're certainly going to see it fairly soon what Arteta's vision is with Thomas Partey in the side. But I have to admit, if it's going to be 4-2-3-1, which I certainly like at home, I think Dani Ceballos and Thomas Partey could be a really, really good midfield partnership. But I know that it's been reported that Thomas is kind of excited to play alongside Xhaka, and he thinks he can play well with him. So we'll have to wait and see. It'd be a surprise if Xhaka doesn't play too often, just because of how much Mikel has rated him and played with him and used him since. Yiga, that's no point me going in with this. Going on with this one, I'm gonna now I've started it. I'm gonna have to finish it, but I can't. I'm just not gonna spend much time with it. So Yiga says, "We have one creative midfielder. Why is Arteta not giving him the chance to prove himself? Imagine Ozil playing behind Auba with Pepe and Willian on the wings." To be fair, Yiga, we've seen Ozil playing behind Auba an awful lot since Aubameyang's come to the club, and I think he's set him up for 2 goals or something. So it's not like Ozil's never played with Auba. He's played with him plenty of times, and he never really gave him too much service. I just think Mesut's best days are behind him. I'm convinced he's still a very good player, but he's not someone who's going to come in and transform this Arsenal team. I don't think. I think Arsenal have got it's a moving process now under Mikel. They're moving away from one era and they're moving towards another one. And Ozil is in that era that is going to be that Arteta is trying to say goodbye to. We've got to accept it. I know lots of you love Mesut Ozil, and I've enjoyed watching him at Arsenal as well. But it's just time to move on from Mesut. Even at the moment, if there isn't an absolute, someone coming in to fill the void left by him in terms of creativity, I just still think it's a time to move on from him, and that's what Mikel's doing. So I'm in agreement with him, I have to say. Kenyon says, "Are you looking forward?" Kenyon Coffee says, "Are you looking forward to breaking the news Arsenal are about to activate Erling Haaland's release clause next summer?" Now that would be nice. What an addition that would be. But I'm not sure that Arsenal are going to be the club that gets hold of Haaland. I've got a sneaky feeling he might well end up in Spain in the next year or two. Right, that's it for the first half. I'm going to stop this now because I think we're up to about half an hour. So I'm going to stop this one for now, and I will be back because there's plenty more to go through, and I will be back to do this in another part to carry on. But I don't want to do it all in one part, as I said at the beginning, because it's just going to go on too long, and you're all probably going to get a little bit bored. So thank you for watching, everyone. Look out in the next day or so for part 2 of this week's Q&A.